Hey y'all, welcome back to Exile Wargaming, where today, and as always, we're going to be talking about Harlequins in a 40K battle report against the Emperor's Children in the Coterie of the Conceited detachment. Now, the list we're bringing today is the closest thing to Mono Quins I've been in a very, very long time, and I gotta say, I'm loving every minute of it. What we have are three Troop Masters, one with Chegarax Coil, a Shadow Seer with the Mistweave Cloak, a Death Jester with Murder's Jest, and the Solitaire to round out our character spots. Now, we do have an 11-man unit of troops, and depending on what you're trying to do with a list like this, you can either attach the Troop Master with Coil or the Shadow Seer with the Mistweave Cloak. For what we're really trying to accomplish here, I would much rather prefer the Troop Master be kind of a heavy hitter anvil style unit in this because we're lacking a lot of damage in other departments. But however you see to play the game, go for it. This is much more of a foundation of a list and a concept than a specific target for what I think everyone should be doing. Now, beyond that, we have 5 units of 5 troops inside of 4 Star Weavers. We're only bringing 4 Star Weavers because we have that Shadow Seer with the Mistweave. We want to have a unit to utilize exit the stage or come in from strategic reserves and not worry about something like indirect fire or really long sight lines throughout the game. Just kind of be a really great utility piece. We're bringing 2 Sky Weavers in 2 units with Zephyr Glaives and Haywire, then 3 units of 5 Rangers. These are essentially going to fill our mime role. We are going to use them to cage our opponent into their deployment zone or off of objectives on the first turn or 2, depending if we get to go first or second, and then 2 units of 3 Shroud Runners to serve that same role and purpose. The goal of a list like this is to just overwhelm your opponent with activations, throw OC on objectives, continually contest the middle and their natural expansion, while also holding ours securely. I'm not bringing something like the Death Jester or the Shadow Seer to do a ton of impactful damage over the course of the game. Most of it is just to provide a target or a obstacle that our opponent has to overcome in order to get to the rest of our force, right? We want to plop a Death Jester on that midfield objective or our natural expansion, force our opponent to come out and deal with it with a relatively impactful unit on their side. We resurrect that character afterwards, and then we can deal with it with our actual fighting force. The goal of this, again, is to just steamroll your opponent with activations and then hope we run away the victor by the end of it. Now, our opponent is bringing the Emperor's Children and the Coterie of the Conceited detachment. And what this detachment does is basically scale itself up and buff all of its units based on the volume of units they destroy over the course of the game. So the longer the game progresses, the more and more damage our opponent is going to be able to inflict on us. Something like a single sergeant in an infractor squad with a grenade and maybe shooting a pistol can wipe an entire Harlequin troop by himself. So what we want to do in this is eliminate as many resources as we can early on in the game, or deny our opponent's ability to buff them throughout the course of it. This is kind of a tricky matchup in that Emperor's Children can fall back, shoot, and charge with all of their units as long as they're not shooting or charging a unit that they fell back from or that someone else is falling back and shooting and charging into as well. So they can escape a lot of our move blocks. They can mess around with a lot of the tactics that we typically employ. We have to be very, very careful in a matchup like this. But they're bringing Lucius the Eternal, 3 Lord Exaltants attached to 3 units of 5 Infractors. They have 2 Demon Princes. One has Pledge of Mortal Pain, which I'm pretty sure is just an enhancement to fill some points. I don't believe it does anything really great. They have a unit of 5 Tormentors to either infiltrate the midboard and push off our infiltrators, or they can plop it on the home field, and I think it may have sticky objectives. They have 3 units of 6 Noise Marines, 2 rhinos, and 2 Mauler fiends. Now, before the nerf, we typically saw 3 demon princes in a lot of these lists. I think since then, Mauler fiends are kind of filling that extra heavy hitter role, and because they can advance in charge, they can clear a lot of space across the board. Our opponent is coming in at 14 total units at 2,000 points on the nose. Now we're going to be playing Mission P, which is Scorched Earth, Crucible of Battle style deployment on my absolute favorite GW terrain layout 1. Now, getting into deployment, we won the dice roll and get to deploy first. So what we wanted to do is stage these Rangers up here so that our opponent could not bring up their Tormentors and block this mid board from us early on. He did end up placing the Tormentors back on his home field objective. I think this would have been a really great option to maybe drop a Mauler Fiend or something like that and have an extra unit of Tormentors. They seem really great in against a strategy like what we're trying to employ. But they are back here at this point in time. So our opponent has a unit of Infractors back here with a Lord Exultant, another unit of Infractors inside of this Rhino, and they are going to be able to scout early on and then get this unit inside of it. He placed a unit of Noise Marines in strategic reserve as well as a Demon Prince. There is another unit of Noise Marines right back here, so this unit can scout up. The Noise Marines can come in and push off from there. And then 2 Mauler Fiends back here in cover. This one can just make a beeline for the midfield objective, especially with advance in charge early on, and this one can kind of move its way out and stage for a turn 2 push on our natural expansion. So we really want to close all of this in. I believe this is a unit of Noise Marines right here up against this wall, and our opponent is going to probably scout this Rhino up, and then the Noise Marines can get in afterwards. So just really taking advantage of all of their scout moves. Otherwise, on our side of the board, because we won that turn 1 roll, we are going to infiltrate these Rangers right up top here. We're going to 1-inch the wall, and we're going to put a unit of Rangers over here. We can keep our opponent from scouting too far forward early on. I think we only cut him off like an inch or so from where he could have went. But if we get to go first, we can block all of this with just a decent advance roll and maybe a battle focus token early on. Force our opponent to drop this unit of Rangers. We can push everything up behind it and then look to just collapse everything if we really needed to. Or we could just throw something like a lone op maybe on this objective and just hold it for the next turn. But this is Scorched Earth, so we can only score 10 points each turn. There's no real point in holding this on our own. All we want to do is contest this from our opponent throughout the course of the game. We have a unit of Shroud Runners to be able to scout up 9 inches and push this forward if we need as well. And all these Rangers can reactive move if our opponent gets close. We have 2 Skyweavers back here. If our opponent wants to put a Rhino up on this angle, we have something to engage. And then a Star Weaver, I believe, with a Troop Master holding out this back section. Our big Chegarex coil brick with the Troop Master is right here on this wall. So again, if he pushes up into here, we do have, if he gets right around here, I think we can get it to like a 7-inch charge, which isn't too bad for us as long as we keep a command point for a reroll. We have our Shadow Seer brick right over here. This, I don't know, is a great spot. Maybe there was something we could have done with this, but I don't feel really excited about what we decided to do here. But we are backing it up with the Solitaire. If our opponent does want to get really aggressive turn 1, we can heroically intervene if we wanted to. We have Shroud Runners over here that can scout, and again, if we needed that extra movement, move block all of this in this section of the board. A Death Jester just kind of holding this angle. He's safe from any long-range firepower. And then a Star Weaver and Sky Weavers down here. This is a unit of Corsairs on the home field objective. We are not bringing them in this list. I promise they are Rangers, and they're going to get swapped out as soon as some of these die. But otherwise, we are just holding with a good bit of symmetry everywhere we possibly can. Now our opponent does win the turn one dice roll and gets to go first. I have yet to go first when employing this game plan, and we're going to see how it goes from here. Now, in the Coterie Conceited detachment, they have to call their shots at the beginning of the turn, how many units they're going to kill, but I believe they do have a stratagem that can up that count by one if they wanted to pick up a few extra buffs moving forward. So I believe if they go kill a unit, they get to re-roll ones to hit. If they kill 3 units, they can re-roll ones to wound. And then if they get up to like 4 or 7 units killed, everything's like critical hitting on fives. It's a wild kind of steamroll. So we did provide our opponent a couple juicy options. He called 3 units to kill and pushes forward with everything. So a unit of Noise Marines gets into this Rhino. The Infractors end up getting out of it. The Mauler Fiend pushes up, and Lucius the Eternal comes up here as well. He does have fights first, so he can heroically intervene if we want to push with something like our big Troop Master Brick, which isn't great for us. We reactive move our Rangers out just so that they cannot get into combat from behind this wall. If our opponent does want to bring them out, we want to make sure that they have to take some spicy angles and expose a couple of their units. They are able to bring down all 4 of these Rangers. One ends up surviving from the shots from this Rhino and the Noise Marines inside. So very fortunate for us. Our opponent rolled pretty poorly, but stealth is a pretty good rule. We lose those, but we have 1 Ranger remaining. And then down low over here, he scouts up the Rhino, ends up disembarking the Infractors. They're going to make a push in here. The Rhino is going to attempt to shoot down, I believe, these Rangers with these cats inside, and I think they split fire and are able to bring down a ton of our Harlequin troop as well. So we have the Shadow Seer remaining on 1 wound over here, and 2 Rangers remaining as well. Now, this is kind of a wild turn 1 charge. Our opponent had the opportunity to charge our Rangers and the Shadow Seer. He is able to very easily bring them down, but we had a couple decisions that we had to make here. We only have 1 command point. And what we opted for is resurrecting the Shadow Seer and just getting something else on the board to do activations, take up space, maybe screen from strategic reserves or a Demon Prince coming down, whatever it may be. But we could have heroically intervened with the Solitaire. And while I'm pretty confident he could have brought down a bunch of these Infractors, I am not confident that he would have survived throughout the course of this game. And playing this matchup a couple times, the Solitaire is crucial, both for taking our opponent's home field objective, but he also just hoses Noise Marines and other, standard units. So we want to leave the Resurrect for later on in the game with the Solitaire. I do not want to throw him away on turn 1. But this also kept our opponent from consolidating into our Shroud Runners if our opponent had to get too close to this Solitaire afterwards. So they are going to end this turn with 2 points on engage on all fronts and 3 points in sabotage. Now in our turn 1, we draw Marked for Death in a tempting target. Our opponent selects this top objective over here as the tempting target and makes it pretty easy for us. I do not believe that with the units that we have remaining, because we lost a bunch of those Rangers early on, that we're going to be able to put a really great move block on them with something like just a unit of Shroud Runners, and I don't quite want to throw away a unit of Harlequin troops just yet. So we're just going to collapse this section of the board and take as many angles as we can to try to bring any of this down. We push up the Shroud Runners. They put a shot on the Rhino. They put some shots from their scatter lasers into these Infractors and are able to bring down one of them. But most importantly, we get to strip cover from this Rhino afterwards. These Skyweavers are going to push up. I believe they take off 6 wounds from this Rhino. We had a couple pistols from this unit of troops that just moved up in the Starweaver and got out. out and took another wound or two off. And then this Star Weaver over here put some shots in with no cover, and I believe we are able to bring it down entirely. So the Noise Marines have to get out. The Rhino is destroyed. This Star Weaver put some shots into the Rhino as well, and then these Harlequin troop are able to bring down 2 more infractors. So we bring down 3 of them right here, and the Rhino, we are in really, really good shape. Our big brick of Harlequin troops has a decent charge, as the Lord Exultant was up front here. He can't pull that model. I believe it was a 7-inch charge, and we'll see if we make it later on. Down here at the bottom, we move these Shroud Runners up into this section of the board. Really, we're just looking to push back his deep strikes as much as possible. We have screened all the way out to this section of the board just based on our positioning right now. So we should be able to keep our opponent at bay, at least from collapsing into us for a very, very long time. But we strip cover on this Rhino. We put some shots into these infractors with these Shroud Runners as well. The Skyweaver puts like 6 wounds into the Rhino, and then the Death Jester actually finishes it off. I think he gets 8 wounds through. He did some work. And the Noise Marines have to disembark. We did get our Solitaire in position with just a normal advance. It was a pretty good move. Over here, we are not blitzing. Just in case they got out, we wanted to kind of limit where they can go. And then our unit of Harlequin troops is going to put some shots into these infractors as well, dropping another couple of them. So we have our options. We're ready to go. This Star Weaver can put some shots down as well. Its nose is poking out over here. And then the troop get out. They're still within 6 inches, so we can get them back in at any point in time. But we had to screen each section of this board from the Demon Prince. So we had a really, really great turn in shooting. We popped both of the Rhinos, cleared some infractors, and exposed a bunch of our opponent's units. In the charge phase, things started to get a little dicey for our opponent. The first thing that we did is charge our lone surviving ranger into Lucius to make sure that he cannot heroically intervene later on. This poor ranger, but he definitely did his job. The big brick of Harlequin troops is going to move up. They are with that troop master. We get 6-inch pile-ins and consolidates. We are going to pile in and consolidate into this Mauler Fiend. The way he pulled his models, our Harlequins having those real small bases were great, so we're going to be able to get some attacks there, but we're also going to be able to get those 6 impact mortals into this unit as well. The Skyweavers push into the Noise Marines and also make sure that depending on what we need to do later on, they can get into combat with the infractors. So the Skyweavers are actually really, really great into Marine bodies, especially expensive ones like Noise Marines. I'm hoping we can bring almost all of these down. On the bottom of the screen, you're going to see the Skyweavers move into the Lord Exultant. We are within engagement range, or 6 inches, to consolidate into these Noise Marines afterwards, but the troop and I believe a troop master are going to go into this Lord Exultant unit. So at the end of it all, the Ranger easily falls to Lucius. No hope there at all. Poor little guy. And then the unit of Harlequin troops is able to put down 6 wounds on the Mauler Fiend and wipe the Lord Exultant and infractors. Unfortunately, the Skyweavers were only able to bring down 2 of the Noise Marines up top over here. We move towards the bottom. The Troop Master and Harlequin Troop are able to bring down the Lord Exultant and the infractors over here down to the wound, and then the Skyweavers can consolidate in and help the Solitaire wipe out the remaining Noise Marines. So we were able to bring down 2 Lord Exultant squads and the Noise Marines and 2 Rhinos in this first turn, while doing some good chip damage into another unit of Noise Marines and this Mauler Fiend up front. We look like we are in really great shape from here, and it's only turn 1. In our opponent's turn 2, they draw behind enemy lines and establish Locust. two that I really don't think are great for them. They do bring the Noise Marines out of strategic reserves up top over here and are very easily able to bring down these Shroud Runners. These Noise Marines fall back and I believe are going to put shots into this Star Weaver, and we just make a million saves. Kind of flubbed on his hits, but we made a great number of saves. I'm not entirely sure if we used smoke at this point, but we may have. The Sky Weavers are going to one fell in the shooting phase, I believe, from the Mauler Fiend. We reactive move our troops back behind this wall so they couldn't get shot up by all of these Noise Marines. Which was pretty nice for us, but Lucius is going to push up and look to do some really great work into them afterwards. So I do not see any of this surviving the remainder of this turn. The Demon Prince that I believe was over here is going to push out and get into our big Chegarax coil brick of Harlequin troops. This Mauler Fiend pushes up, and in combination with the Demon Prince that deep striked over here, this is as close as he could get, brings down all of the Shroud Runners. So unfortunately for us, we do lose that unit, and they're positioning for a really great number of charges afterwards. So starting off up top over here, the Demon Prince charges the Chegarax coil brick, kills 6 of the Harlequin troops. We bring them out of combat with him, so his only eligible target is the Star Weaver, and he is able to bring that down. Again, that's a very, very easy task for the Demon Prince, but Lucius goes bonkers and wipes the entire unit of Harlequin troops, minus the Troop Master, who's left alive on just 1 wound remaining. Down low, the Mauler Fiend moves into our unit of Sky Weavers, and our Harlequin troop heroically intervenes. He is out of range by just a hair of the Solitaire, and our Harlequin troop, I believe we may have used an interrupt at this point, was able to bring down the Mauler Fiend to just 1 wound remaining. As the Mauler Fiend attacked into the Sky Weavers, again, I think it's hitting on 4s, but he's re-rolling 1s, and he gets +1 to hit, minus maybe he was hitting on 3s. Was not able to bring him down. We made, I think he put 3 or 4 saves on us, and we made a good number of those saves. So we walk away with 1 Skyweaver remaining. But this was a pretty good turn for our opponent. They were able to bring down quite a few of our units, 2 units of Shroud Runners, the Chegarax Coil Brick, a unit of Sky Weavers, and a Star Weaver or 2 all fell in this turn. So we lost a hefty bit, but hopefully we have enough on the board to keep clapping back. Moving into our turn 2, we score 10 points in primary and draw behind enemy lines in overwhelming force. So all we need to do is kill some things on objectives and get something in our opponent's backline. Fortunately for us, we have the absolute best unit in 40K to make that happen. Maybe one of them. In the Solitaire, who's going to blitz towards our opponent's home field objective. You can't see him on the screen over here, but he is over here, and he had a real easy, like 3 or 4 inch charge into these Tormentors. So he is going to blitz and make that move from there. We use the fallback shoot and charge strat with our Harlequin troops that were in combat with the Mauler Fiend to push up towards this Demon Prince, kind of give us an easy charge either way. Regardless, we'll see how the shooting phase goes. And then we fall back with the Sky Weaver that was over here. We kind of reposition our Star Weavers. We had a Star Weaver back here screening this section of the board, but our opponent brought in the Demon Prince and the Noise Marines last turn, so we don't have to hold that space anymore. And it's just going to come up to be a resource to re-embark our troops into if we really, really needed to. The Shadow Seer is going to move up to this objective, maybe charge a Mauler Fiend if we need to, and the Death Jester is going to push up as well to get some shots into the Demon Prince. So we do end up getting, I think, maybe five wounds through with the fusion pistols from this unit over here, and our opponent used a command point reroll to try to get rid of it. We weren't in Melta range, but we rolled nice and hot on the damage. And then the Star Weavers in combination with the Death Jester are able to bring it down entirely. I was not confident we were going to be able to make that happen, so this unit of troops is then able to just push back into this Mauler Fiend afterwards. It was kind of the best case scenario for us, but we planned for it. We have a ton of Harlequin troop units over here just converging on this Demon Prince. We are going to put, I believe, 5 fusion pistol shots into him, as well as this Star Weaver, and we are able to bring him down to just a wound or 2 remaining. He was down to just a couple wounds in the shooting phase, and then this unit of Harlequin troops are able to bring down Lucius. May have been grenades, it may have just been a really great fusion pistol shot that got through, but they definitely did some really great work. In the charge phase, we're able to bring down the Demon Prince, and we re-embark our troops in the center. This unit of Harlequin troops with the Troop Master are going to push into these Infractors, and we are able to bring down all of them except for the Lord Exultant, who then wipes our entire unit and brings the Troop Master down to just 2 wounds remaining afterwards. This unit of Harlequin troops finishes off the Mauler Fiend over here, and the Solitaire is able to bring down all but one of the Tormentors on our opponent's home field objective. In our opponent's turn 3, they score 10 points on primary and draw Defend Stronghold and Overwhelming Force. So they do have to kill units on objectives. They have an opportunity to try to make it happen. I don't know how successful they're going to be. They end up just kind of shifting, playing musical chairs with the Noise Marines. So the Marines that were back here are going to push up to this objective. These Noise Marines are going to push up over here and very handily bring down this Star Weaver. Our troops get out. I think this was an 8-inch charge, maybe a 9 afterwards. The Lord Exultant right here does fall back. Sorry, I got this picture before that happened, and is going to make his way up to this section of the board. And then the Mauler Fiend pulls down to take our opponent's home field objective back from us and the Solitaire. Our opponent makes a charge, I think to just steal some extra movement for the Noise Marines into our Troop Master. Very handily brings him down. We do not resurrect the Troop Master at this point because we want to make sure we're bringing back the Solitaire. So we did lose this guy. We do have another Troop Master over here. The Lord Exultant brings down the Star Weaver. Thank God for these, just kind of protecting all of our units, and just being that activation lock that we really need. So now if the Exultant wants to move into these Harlequin troops, they're all going to be able to get to fight for free without any reprisal. Just such a great tactic against armies that function in one phase of the game. He does fail the charge with these Noise Marines into these troops. He may have used a command point to re-roll it, but down low over here, we chose with the Solitaire, knowing that he's going down, to bring down the Tormentor, just remove that resource, and he does fall to the Mauler Fiend. In our turn 3, we score another 10 points in primary and draw Display of Might and recover assets. So our Troop Master that was over here is going to push all the way towards this section of the board. He's going to shoot his fusion pistol as well as the fusion pistols from these other Harlequin troops over here. And they're going to bring down 3 of the Noise Marines. So that's pretty nice for us. We do advance with the Solitaire up here to try to get into combat with these Noise Marines, and I think we used the no Overwatch token to make this a reality. Our unit of troops that was in this midsection of the board over here is going to push up and try to bring down this Mauler Fiend or steal the home field objective from them so they can't score 3 points on Defend Stronghold. And then our Shadow Seer down here at the bottom is just going to burn this objective. The Death Jester pushed up to get some shots into the Lord Exultant, and they are able to bring all of this down in the shooting phase. Now, this was kind of a super greedy turn on our point. We could have done things a little bit more safely, or with a little bit more grace. But what we ended up doing is charging everything into this one Noise Marine and used it to springboard onto this objective up top here. The Solitaire is going to bring down 5 of these Noise Marines, and then our Harlequin troop down here runs into this Mauler Fiend, which is definitely something I wouldn't recommend if the Mauler Fiend was at full strength. Now, what happened is we brought down 6 wounds off of this Mauler Fiend in combat, and he stayed alive. We forgot we lost his wound counter early on in the game, and he ended up fighting back. I forgot that he took a bunch of wounds on turn 1, as so did my opponent, and he completely wiped our unit of Harlequin troops. So this should have been dead, but it wasn't, and it's going to score our opponent that extra 3 points on Defend Stronghold. So keep your wound markers close after you move models. It makes a difference. And then moving into our opponent's final turn of the game, they draw Cleanse and Display of Might. They don't have any units to really make this a reality. So when we clap back in to something like this Noise Marine, he falls. If we give our opponent the grace of just holding their home field objective, and then we burn the middle objective or this top over here, we are going to walk away with a max score in primary. So at the end of it all, we run away with this game 100 to 46, burning 2 objectives, even though we didn't get to claim our opponent's home field. This game was a battle. I did not expect it. This was not the game plan going into it. My original plan was to just push up the Rangers and block all the Rhinos and anything else from getting into our lines, then create space with the Shroud Runners and screen the rest of the board, so our opponent didn't have any really great places to put his Noise Marines or his Demon Prince. And then from there, we were just going to kind of trade on objectives. I figured I can throw 10 OC on an objective, and our opponent wouldn't have much to say about it for the remainder of the game. The goal was to just kind of run away with an early lead, and then at the end, burn whatever objective I needed to walk away the victor. But it didn't quite happen like that. Our opponent went into our lines really, really quick, and it was nice to see our damage potential kind of take over. Our profiles are just really efficient into Marine bodies. The prick felt really great again, especially with Chegarak's Coil. But the Troop Masters in general just do a ton of work. They're wounding on 2s, they're hitting on 2s, we reroll 1s, they're -2 AP with devastating wounds. I mean, there's just so much that they can do into that standard profile. The Shadow Seer, I definitely misplayed it and deployed it, but it ended up working out because it served as kind of a really expensive bait unit for our opponent. While they did get to activate their rerolls of 1s to hit and wound right off the bat on turn 1, I think it put us in a much better position over the long term of the game, especially with the Solitaire just running ragged through their ranks. He was the MVP, killed 2 units of Noise Marines and a unit of Tormentors, and fights first on that first turn, I think helped keep the Lord Infractor and those or the Lord Exaltant and those infractors from crashing into our lines and tying up too many units while we can still fall back, shoot and charge, and we could have wiped them out in the fight phase. It just gave us a little extra mobility afterwards. So Solitaire is incredible. The Death Jester felt real kind of pointless. I can see him being really useful later on in the matchups, but against something like -1 damage, he does almost nothing. It would have been nice to maybe precision down a Lord Exaltant, but then we're not getting all of those extra wounds, so it just doesn't feel like it's doing anything that great. But I did like the option of having him there. The Skyweavers were solid again. Making our opponent hit on 4s is pretty nice. They're good into Marine profiles, and sometimes they just live and can kind of spiral a game. So, we have 2 Sky Skyweavers. They go in, they take 6 wounds off a Mauler Fiend. We do some chip damage, maybe with a grenade on something else. And then that one lone Skyweaver can finish it off and screen a section of the board and maybe help support another troop unit later. They're really solid for that. I've been loving getting them back on the board. It's really that perfect like follow-up piece on turn 2, something that our opponent has to deal with, but they really don't want to. And then it allows the rest of our units to just kind of take advantage. But the Star Weavers themselves, outside of the Solitaire being the MVP, are really what bailed us out. Going up against World Eaters, where they're really kind of single phase damage, and going up against Emperor's Children in that single phase damage, Star Weavers are just incredible. The profiles that we have with fusion pistols and everything being great into elite infantry or marine bodies just means that we get to hit twice as hard, combine it with a resurrect stratagem, and it's like our opponent can never remove our resources in a meaningful way early on. Just allows us to kind of grind out a bunch of wins. Emperor's Children, though, don't have a ton of wounds, so it really makes our mortal wound, our dev wound output hold a little bit more weight. While they have the Mauler Fiends at 12 wounds, and they have a couple Demon Princes, I believe, at 10 wounds, there are not a bunch of heavy hitters in their list. -1 damage is brutal against our 2 damage attacks, but against our high volume of damage 1, it just doesn't do anything. And those mortal wounds or grenades just seem to be incredible into an army like this. All that being said, though, one Emperor's Children model can be a legitimate threat. Even Noise Marines are a legitimate threat in all phases of the game once all of their buffs are up. When they're getting, sustained hits or lethal hits and critical 5s, their base attacks do really, really well into us. As we know, Harlequins have a great invulnerable save, but that's the only save that they have. And just volume or weight of attacks and firepower make it happen. So a unit of Noise Marines being able to drop a Star Weaver and then charge its contents and then consolidate into something else afterwards could do a ton of work. I think I would have used the Noise Marines a little bit more aggressively in this game, to be honest. But just one model is wild. A sergeant with a Rapture Lash or their 6 attacks, whatever it is, shooting a pistol, throwing a grenade very easily brings down an 85-point unit for its 15-point cost on itself. So we want to be careful there. But overall, we just did not have the opportunity to utilize any of our move blocks, anything that we planned. But our staging did prove to be enough to kind of bait our opponent out on turn 1 and try to get things rolling early. And we had just enough damage and just enough resiliency, whether it was applying -1 to hit or a resurrect throughout the course of the game, to really kind of flip it off, especially on turn 1, being able to drop a couple rhinos, tie up a couple units, keep him on his section of the board. So I am very, very excited at this direction with Harlequins. I know on paper it doesn't look like it's going to do much of anything, but just weight of attacks and OC and movement mobility seem to be doing the trick. But y'all, I hope you enjoyed. I am so glad that we are not seeing as much Chaos Knights and Death Guard and all of that as we were before, because this way of playing the game just makes so much more sense to me. It is so much more fun being able to play the units on the table that you really, really want. While again, I love Banshees and especially units like Dire Avengers and Osterman, and there are things that we all love in the Eldari Codex. It's just not quite the same as throwing something like the Death Jester on the board or a bunch of Skyweavers and our Harlequin troops and really making something happen. I definitely think we're onto something. I'd like to get into a few matchups where our opponent isn't as impacted by something like the move blocks or the OC. Something like Blood Angels would be a really, really great test. But we'll see where the next couple games take us. I really appreciate y'all. Please like, share, subscribe. Thanks again, and I'll see y'all in the next video.